Was there some frustration?
Absolutely. From our point of view, being in the room, we knew that if he was just given a little bit of grace, for want of a better word, but a little bit of room, and to feel like he's had a little win, then maybe, he'll be placated once again. Yeah. So we were looking for that.
Take us through till sort of midnight.
We're all sitting around looking at each other in a way, with not knowing what else to do. The whole day, there were noises in the cafe, just ordinary noises in a cafe, but they rattled him. He was like, what's that? Thinking it's the police and all that kind of thing. So there was the noise of the ice making machine in the cafe, and it just kind of goes thud, every hour on the hour. And there's the noises from the industrial fridges. So there's all these noises, and every time the ice machine went, we all just went, it's the ice machine, relax. He says, you mind the door. And I'm thinking, as if Jared's going to mind the door. Anyway, then he says, keeps walking with the two girls. Now at that stage, I majorly started to panic. Oh my God, what's going to happen? Yeah. He's going to take them to the kitchen. What's he going to do? Is he going to kill one of them? Or is it going to be something worse? What is he going to do to those two girls? In that moment, I just closed my eyes really tight and I started to pray like a crazy woman. Like, God, are you here? Are you watching? Can you see what's happening? Those girls are going to die. What's going to happen? And then all of a sudden, this big bang. And I opened my eyes, and literally all of my fellow hostages that were sitting right there had gone. I didn't know what to do, so I just lay down on the floor and put my arms out, and I thought, he's going to come and kill me because I'm not in the spot that he left me in. And I thought, definitely this is it, dying today.
The I Catch Killers podcast was a fresh start for me, as I left policing behind and started a new life. Over the years, we've laughed together, cried, and shared some powerful moments. Welcome to I Catch Killers.
Welcome back to part 2 of my chat with Louisa Hope, a person who lived through the horror of being a hostage during the Lindt Cafe. Louisa, welcome back.
Thank you.
Again, I apologise, and I'm going to say that, reliving this, to get a sense of the impact it has on you as an individual. I think so people can understand, because you speak so clearly about your experience there. But I asked you the other day in researching and preparing for the podcast, I had a look at some old Vision and watched the 60 Minutes special on the Lindt Cafe Siege, which you featured prominently in. And I was surprised when you said, I haven't watched it. So you are still carrying stuff from that, from the experience.
Yeah, I think that, with regards to media, it's a very special place. And once you've given over, you've given over your true self, and of course then the media can cut and edit and do what they want with that. So you have to trust them, and so therefore, and of course it's just so embarrassing to watch yourself, don't you think? Or listen back to something you say.
Listen and watch.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's just probably more that than the angst of it. The interesting thing for me, of course, and I don't know how everyone else handled it, my mother and I, so after the siege, I was 3 months in hospital, Mum was about 2 weeks, and then we lived together, my mother and I, and my sister, God bless her, she came up from the coast, left her organic farm, and came up to look after us, because actually we needed looking after. And so we were all living together, and it was obvious that Mum and I were having a very different experience.
Yep.
So, which really, when it comes to kind of the case study of these kind of things, it would have been interesting, at the time to sort of follow our different paths. But for me, post-siege, I feel like I had a post-trauma euphoria in that, I was just so gobsmacked and amazed that it didn't die.
Survived.
That I was just like, just overwhelming gratitude. And I just sort of went up. And so, it was about year 8 before I realised that actually I was experiencing some post-traumatic symptoms and psychological challenges. And so it was until then that I actually went and saw somebody properly about it.
Yeah, it's interesting, and we'll talk a little bit more about the impact that it had on you, your mum, and everyone else later. Getting back to the siege, I think where we left off in part 1, that the two girls had escaped, and collectively as a group you managed to talk Monis round into not believing what's been reported in the media and potentially placated the situation to the fact that he didn't kill a hostage like he threatened to if anyone else escaped. We're now getting to, it's started in the morning, it's starting to get dark. I think an issue came, he was getting agitated that the street lights were on.
Yes.
Talk us through that and what the tension was in the room as you set your sights on things, if I can just get through this day. But when the day is starting to turn into night, how were you feeling as an individual, and what did you feel like the atmosphere of the group was?
Well, we're starting to get to that point, especially as night started to come in. But we're definitely getting to that stage. We're still trying everything. Like at one stage, someone said, "Let's try Al Jazeera." So we're trying Al Jazeera, and let's try, CNN, all the internationals.
To get to the media.
Yeah. So we're still trying to do that, knowing that they would be starting to wake up around that time, and we're still trying BBC, the whole nine yards. Really, it was everybody were trying. And so it becoming increasingly challenging. And of course, by then the negotiators were ringing us, police negotiators were ringing us, and hostages were speaking to them, and with, little bits and things that he wanted during the day. And so there was that, and hostages were, trying to speak to the negotiators and placate him and just kind of try and keep things on an even keel. But of course the night's pressing in now, and one of the things that started to happen was he started to get agitated about the lights.
Yeah.
So of course in Martin Place it was nearly Christmas, so there was a giant Christmas tree and all the lights on the Christmas tree, and then there were the pedestrian lights, which is funny how you hear them, they're louder at night time than they are during the day. So he's starting to say things like, "I want to get the lights turned off." So we're ringing the negotiators. We're trying to get through to them. At one stage, we rang the number that the negotiators had given us, and of course, nobody answered. That was a little bit peculiar.
So just hold it there, and we'll get back to that. But just clarifying, speaking to the negotiators. So on your mobile phones,
Yes.
making contact with the negotiators,
Yes.
and Monis was happy for you to talk to the negotiators?
Yeah, he was.
And it was on speakerphone, was
Yes.
it? So he could hear what was being said.
That's right.
And what type of communications were being had?
Well, it was peculiar speaking with them, I've got to say. So we were asking for things like the lights to be turned off. And at one stage, one of the negotiators were saying, we asked a while ago these lights, he wants the lights turned off. And and the chap we were speaking to at the moment, I can't remember what their name was, but he said, "Well, it's not just straightforward to get the lights turned off." And we're all like, "What?" How hard could that possibly be? Really, in this moment, whoever turns off the lights should be right there on the spot, but apparently not. So there was a lot of that kind of thing going on, and the police were getting no closer to speaking to him personally. He was definitely not going to speak to them personally. He used, different ones of the women to speak to them. Yeah.
Okay, so he refused to speak directly to the police.
Yes.
All right, we got the situation with the lights. As I understand it, the lights became an issue where he became agitated to the point where he said if the lights aren't turned off in 15 minutes, someone's going to die.
Mm-hmm.
What was the atmosphere like then?
That was very tense and quite distressing.
Yep.
And, so that raises the bar again. And, so of course it's making all of us, we're fatiguing as well. The day's going on and everyone's getting anxious and tired, and more so, thinking that here we are. In my head, I personally was thinking, right, well, we've missed the other opportunities. Okay, probably what the police would do was they'll aim for that, that 3 a.m. time where everyone's circadian rhythms are, up and down, and maybe they'll come in then. So I sort of thought to myself, okay, I don't know what time it is, but we've got a little way to go yet. Then they're definitely going to come in then, right? So that was just generally. But of course, the other thing was that people were collectively getting discouraged that there'd been no police and there was no give on behalf of the police.
Yeah.
Earlier on in the siege, there had been a armoured truck, collect the money, parked out the front, and he said he wanted that moved. So the police had arranged for that to be moved quickly, which was a good thing. But as time went by, and of course things changed, it went from being a situation to being a terrorist event. So from that point of view, I know that it changed within the police, and of course that meant that we don't negotiate with terrorists, and so there was no negotiation. So that was, yeah.
From your point of view, as a hostage point of view, was there, and collectively as a group, you can talk on behalf of the group if you feel comfortable, was there some frustration?
Absolutely. Because from our point of view, being in the room, we knew that if he was just given a little bit of, grace, for want of a better word, but a little bit of room, and to feel like he's had a little win, then maybe, he'll be placated once again. Yeah. So we were looking for that, and to therefore wait then that little bit longer for when the police come in. So, and avoid somebody being killed. So that was where we were collectively at, I think it's fair to say.
Were the people talking to the police highlighting the fact that, this is very real, like someone's going to die? Was it like, I can imagine if I was at the end of the phone, not as a police officer, as a hostage, I'd be making the point very clear, hey, listen to what I'm saying. Is that the type of conversation that was flowing?
Definitely, so that was, people were beginning to become very vocal and frustrated with dealing with the police, especially, that time when the number that we'd been given was not answered. And then one of the girls I know went on to ring one of the local, it was either a radio station or television station, I can't recall which, but she rang, and God love him, the poor woman who answered the phone said, I can't do anything for you, you've got a number, ring the number. And, our girl in the room says, we've rung the number, but they don't answer, and so the frustration was across the board. Foolishly, I had thought in the moment that the police would have had cops placed amongst all the, local media outlets and sort of listening in conversations. I don't know why I thought that there'd be that level of sophistication in this situation, but I did.
Yeah.
And I thought that there'd be across all of that. And so I really feel for the woman who answered the phone at the, random media outlet, sort of the pressure that she must have felt. I can't do anything for you. Ring the number that the police have given you. And, so it was this kind of looping.
What was going... So you were given a number. Or when I say you, I'm talking collectively as the hostages and Monis for that matter. Given a number that if you need to speak to us, we're on this number.
That's right.
And the number was phoned and it didn't answer.
That's right. So, I understand, in hindsight, having gone to the inquest, that the reason for that was that there was some sort of a collective handover meeting at the time that we made that call. So there was nobody actually in their situation room to answer the call, which was unfortunate, really.
Well, I'd go as far, and I'm a police officer, and I make mistakes like we all do, but that's not unfortunate. That's unforgivable. That's but in the chaos of it, hindsight's a wonderful thing. So I'm not going to not judging, but I think you've been very kind saying unfortunate. It shouldn't happen. And and we've talked off mic, and we'll talk further about it. Lessons that need to be learnt, and we can all always improve. But the one thing that should have priority is the hotline straight to what's going on in the siege. The 15 minutes, the lights turned off. Were they turned off in the 15 minutes?
No.
I would imagine as it was getting dark, tensions are rising anyway. Like you've indicated that the police, when everyone's a little bit tired around about the 3 a.m. mark, let's not give away police methodology, but they might come in there. But I would imagine also as it got dark, you've been through the whole day and thinking, okay, they're waiting for it to get dark, then they're going to make the move. All the lights will go off and the police will come storming in the building.
Yeah, that's right. When, that was starting to become the place of hope that, it's going to happen, it's got to happen soon. And but it was just sort of, what was becoming obvious amongst the collective was that we were running out of options. We'd run out of options for media. He was concerned that he at one stage had said that he'd release a hostage in good faith. There was even a discussion about who that should be. And, the fact of the matter is, with all of that happening, he then was hesitant to release this hostage because he said he couldn't rely on the media to tell people that he had done that in good faith. So, yeah, that didn't happen, obviously. And so all of that, so all these discussions and negotiations and considerations about who should be released and who should, it was just intense.
Yeah.
So at one point at the inquest, they were saying things were settling down in the stronghold, which of course is what they call the cafe. But the opposite was actually true.
Yeah.
Things were building, the tension was building, because we knew that we'd run out of options. We could not get this media attention that we had been trying to get for him all day. So where does he go now? What do we do?
And what you said, and again with the benefit of hindsight and from what came out in the inquest, as I understand it and how it was reported, that there was a perception within the police and the people that had been relying on to give an opinion that it's going to settle down, it'll settle down overnight. But what you're saying, it was completely the opposite.
That's right.
He was getting agitated, you guys were getting agitated, and the tension was rising in the stronghold.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's how it really was. And so, of course, no one's screaming or shouting.
Yeah.
And if they were observing from the outside, they'd just think it was quiet in there, and all of the lights were off inside the cafe. So, but that was a wrong assumption. Definitely.
And an assumption to think when there's only one terrorist in there, one person controlling it, that person's is just going to stay awake the whole night, which is possible, but obviously, starts to get weary.
That's right. You've got to assume that,
He wouldn't have thought it's going to go, I'm going to be sitting up all night trying to sort this out.
No, that's right. I mean, the night makes you tired, doesn't it? And so, yes, of course. What was the plan? We didn't know. Did
you settle down at any particular point in time? Was there a time you're sitting, standing or laying on the floor? Did you at one point in time go, well, it's just whatever's going to happen is going to happen? No,
well, certainly towards, as the night's creeping on there, it was definitely I think I could say we were feeling the collective nowhere else to go, sense amongst us. And it was like, well, what happens now? So there's a certain sense of being, reduced to that and being left with that, well, what can we do now? So that had a certain sense of heaviness about it. But it was not a settling because there was still discussion going on, and still he was then become busy thinking. We could tell that he was trying to work out what to do. And then he says to the young Lindt workers to get us tea and food. It was once again weird. So we did that. Had tea and food.
Okay. Take us through till sort of midnight. What's the next significant thing that took place?
Well, then we're all sitting around looking at each other in a way, with not knowing what else to do, and we've had some food and drink, and he then gets to the point where all day during the whole day, there were noises in the cafe, just ordinary noises in a cafe, but they rattled him. He was like, what's that? Thinking it's the police and all that kind of thing. So there was the noise of the ice making machine in the cafe, and it just kind of goes thud, every hour on the hour. And there's the noises from the industrial fridges. So there's all these noises, and every time the ice machine went, we all just went, it's the ice machine, relax.
Placating.
Yeah, that's right. So, but we all got used to those noises. And of course they're louder in the night time. And he heard this noise and he wasn't sure, and he decided that he wanted to go to the cafe himself. To go into the kitchen himself. And so that's what he decided he was going to do. He's going to go into the kitchen and investigate the noise. What was the noise? So there we all are. We're in the cafe just broadly sitting around together. And he says, right, we're going to go, he points to Selena and Fiona Ma and Jared. So 3 hostages. And he says, we're going into the kitchen. He put the 2 girls in front of him, then Jared. I think that's correct. And he starts to walk towards the kitchen.
Yep.
Okay, and I'm thinking, right, paying tension now. This is different. He's not done this the whole day. It's unusual. Okay, then where's he going? What's he going to do?
So and the kitchen is divided from the cafe. So
That's right.
When he's walking into the kitchen, you guys are out of sight.
That's right.
He's out of sight of you.
Exactly.
So you're sitting there on your own.
Yeah, effectively. So we're walking, and then he randomly says he's on his way in a line. Everyone's walking in a line towards the kitchen, watching and thinking. And then he says to Jared, young Jared Morton Hoffman, he says, "You mind the door." Mind the door? And that's the door that goes between the back of the cafe and the vestibule area for the rest of the building. And that's a glass door where the young girls had escaped through. Okay, mind the door? Jared, and I'm thinking, as if Jared's going to mind the door. Anyway, then he says, keeps walking with the two girls. Now, at that stage, I majorly started to panic. I'm sitting there in my chair, like everyone's around, and I go, oh my God, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
He's going to take them to the kitchen. What's he going to do? Is he going to kill one of them? Or is it going to be something worse? What is he going to do to those two girls? Yeah. And he's walking towards the kitchen. And of course, by then, Gary, I'm in a mad, frantic panic because I'm thinking, holy moly, what's going to happen, right? So in that moment, I just closed my eyes really tight and I started to pray like a crazy woman. Like, God, are you here? Are you watching? Can you see what's happening? Those girls are going to die. What's going to happen? And then all of a sudden, this big bang. And I opened my eyes and literally all of my fellow hostages that were sitting right there had gone.
Right.
And I went, oh, okay, we're going. Right, so I stood up and then, of course, Tori Johnson and my mother were sitting behind me on the bench seat really close to me. So I get up and I go towards the door. And I think the others have gone, what's happened, blah, blah. And I'm on my way towards the door. Anyway, Tori and Mum are not moving. So I'm trying to, because I didn't have my glasses on, and it was dark in the cafe. I'm trying to, come with me. I'm indicating for them to come with me. They're not moving. So I'm going towards the door and I'm literally nearly at the door. And I went, what am I going to do? I can't leave without Mum. And I literally spun around on one leg, because I haven't got a walking stick or anything, and I literally did that. And I thought, I can't leave my mother. So, I didn't know what to do. So I just lay down on the floor and put my arms out. And I thought, he's going to come and kill me because I'm not in the spot that he left me in. And I thought, definitely this is it, dying today. And, I had a whole lot of different thoughts, but in the moment it was like, oh, well, here we go. But within seconds, he was over the top of me. He grabbed me by my bra strap, through the back of my dress and hauled me up, and I'm a bit dodgy on my feet, Yep. And so he's panicked, is absolutely in a frantic panic state, and he didn't know whether to sit me or stand. Sit here, stand? No, he just was so confused. And then in the end, he says, and he walks a bit closer out into the middle of the cafe and closer to the front door, and he says, you stand here on my right side. And then he says to Mum, you come here, and he places her on his right side, which is the kitchen side. And then he calls to Tori Johnson and he says, you, manager, come here, kneel down and put your hands on your head. So of course that was like, because what's that? That's execution position, like it was just terrifying in the moment. And by then, you can imagine, I don't know how Mum was, but I absolutely was dripping with adrenaline and, just totally freaked out and thinking, what's going to happen? He's going to kill Tori. And then he starts to shuffle, and he's shuffling where he's standing. He's holding his gun up and he's scanning the front door, and he's scanning, like assuming, as we were, that the police were coming. And so he's doing that scan thing. Then he actually drops down into one of the pockets on his cargo pants and pulls out more bullets, and I watch him put them into the gun. And then he's doing the scanning thing, and and I'm thinking he's going to kill Tori, and then bang. But what he does is shoots up into the right-hand side of the ceiling. So it's like, he didn't kill Tori, he didn't kill him. It was like this overwhelming relief. And then he goes back to scanning, and we're waiting. Where are the police? When are they coming in to rescue us? And, so he's scanning the room again, and he's going through the same motions. And the next minute he knows he does the same thing. He shuffles, puts the gun up to his shoulder, and then he goes bang. And this time he'd shot Tori, and Tori just fell forward. And he fell forward, and he had his hands, I could see, still on the back of his head. And he just fell forward, and in that moment you think, oh, maybe he just hit him in the shoulder, Maybe he didn't kill him, maybe he just hit his shoulder and he's just gone forward and, as he went down, the table bounced, he hit the leg of the table and it was just like, I couldn't believe that I just couldn't believe that he had killed him, like he was dead. I just was overwhelmed with the shock of it, and it was unbelievable in the moment, and the overwhelming physical sense of adrenaline and fear and terror was just so intense. And then what? Well, then where are the police? The police have got to come now, but they didn't. Now, I can't tell you the minutes that took for them to come, but it just was so, we're waiting, and I'm thinking, what's next? Well, it's only Mum and I. He doesn't know that, Marcy is still in the room, or Katrina for that matter. I didn't know Katrina was still in the room. Yeah. So we're looking, and I'm thinking, this is it. He'll kill Mum or I or both of us together. So, it was just sort of like so overwhelming, and we're waiting and waiting for the police to come. And it was like a car accident, when it's happened so fast but slow at the same time. So we're in that sort of scenario, and it just was so intense. And then the next minute, all this colour started to fill the room, and then smoke, and then it was just like this sort of surreal kind of thing. I'm seeing reds and oranges and everything, and then smoke, and then kaboom. Then all the police starts to come in, and they're firing and firing and all the bullets, and it was just incredible haze of, and I'm still standing there where he had placed me. I'm still standing, and I'm like, oh no, what, well, if I just stand here. How
close are you to him?
Well, I was right next to him, so close that when he turned around, I could feel his backpack hitting me in the shoulder, and I'm hanging on for grim death, not wanting to fall over. And so, this was, but when the bullets started firing, I just had that moment where I thought, if I just stand still, one of those police will just come in and shoot him, bang, dead, and then it'll all be over. But that's not what happened. And then someone called out, get down, get down. I don't know where that come from. And then I'm thinking, how do I get down? And then the next minute I had felt another hit, and that hit knocked me off, and I staggered across towards the bench side seat, and I slid down one of the tables, and then I was on the ground. Yep. So, and I really had this kind of missing piece in my memory of standing and then on the ground. So I don't kind of exactly know what happened, but it was just sort of so intense, and all the time the bullets just kept firing and kept going, and I'm lying there on the floor at this stage, and I look down, and I suddenly noticed that the straps from my good sandals are gone, and I'm thinking, oh no, my good sandals, how am I going to get that fixed? Oh my God, I'm going to die, but like your mind, what do you think of? And then it's just constantly, it doesn't stop. It's so intense, keeps going, all these bullets and then the smoke. And then I had my eyes closed, and I had my eyes closed with my hands over my eyes. And I actually thought, we've survived this whole day, but we're definitely going to die now. I may as well watch, So I took my hands away, opened my eyes, and all I could see was smoke, and it was dark in the room, and the shards of light from outside, and you could see the smoke in the shards of light. It was so intense, and then it was crazy, and just kept going, and then all of a sudden, bang, stopped. Just stopped. Quiet. I was like, it stopped. And, it was peculiar then. There was that moment, and I sort of half sat up, and I was feeling my head and checking and I'm thinking, I'm not dead, It was such a surprise. I knew that my foot was something wrong with my foot, because I'd been through that where I was in such pain, but I thought they're still firing, so they don't know where he is. He's not dead, so I can't scream out. So anyway, and then the next minute, one of the TOU guys is over the top of me, and he's shouting, get up, run. And I'm like, run? Isn't it over? Run, he's saying. And I said, I can't, my foot. He says, well, can you hop? And he hauls me up by one hand. Hop, sure, man. You say hop, I'll just hop right out of here. And it was like, because, they're pretty big and scary, those dudes, right? And I know that they're the heroes, but like in the moment it was, yeah, sure. Yeah. So I started to hop out of the cafe, which is really, when I think about it, must have been a sight to see. But, and then, of course, two of the guys come behind me, picked me up, scooped me up and took me out and lay me on Phillip Street. But it was just, it's so intense.
Well, yeah, I haven't interrupted you because you created the atmosphere as what would happen there. And, basically what you've described of Tori's been put on his knees and executed in front of you, and the trauma that's associated from there, and then that time delay, and you're thinking, what's going to happen? Where does it go from there? And you're standing beside this person that's just murdered someone right in front of you. So I can understand your concern. And then the police have broken windows and thrown flash grenades in there to distract and create chaos. And in knowing the scene and knowing the scene very well, because I did the crime scene, is it would have been so noisy, and things would have been echoing, and it would have been just chaos for you.
Yeah.
And then when the police have come in, I'm anticipating there's still not 100% clarification whether there's a bomb that's going to go off, so there's an urgency to get you out of there.
That's right.
So all this is going through your mind at the time. And when you were actually taken out into Martin Place, or where you got out, did you have time to process what you had just seen and been through?
Probably not really. For example, I didn't know where my mother was.
Yeah.
Lost sight of Mum in all of that. And so I was on Phillip Street, lying on the road where they put me. And it was just so silent, Gary. The city was quiet, really quiet. But at the same time, there was boots on the pavement, and the running and shouting, and, things are going on, and it's all happening. But it was, at the same time, quiet, And, of course, my brain's exploded with 10 trillion things, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I can't believe I have survived.
Yep.
And then my next thought is, Mum's definitely dead. Mum's definitely dead. There's no way anyone could have survived that. And then I how am I going to tell my brother and sister, that Mum was with me? And, so your thoughts are crazy. And at the same time, I'm thinking about the fact that this awful thing has just happened, and how are we going to get some sort of good out of what's happened? Because I was freaked out about that. How were we possibly going to recover as a society? And also, I was very mindful of looking for that good. What good thing can we possibly get out of what's just happened? And I was terrified, really, that there'd be race riots in the street. I remember thinking at the time, oh man, this is going to be bad tomorrow morning. Yeah, I really, that was, but you think when those kind of things happen, when the disaster comes to you, you kind of think in layers. You're thinking with your body, and you're in pain, and I was convinced I was going to lose my foot because it was a pretty big hole at the time.
Okay, so that was a bullet fragment?
Yeah, it turned out to be just shrapnel from a police bullet, and I've got shrapnel in various parts of my body. Had caught some in my belly, and then the big one that hit my foot. And it's funny how things work, But I have a walking stick, and I've had that for a little while, and that was because of MS, and I have something they call drop foot. So that means that the foot doesn't quite work the way it should. So I had this drop foot, and it happened to be my left foot. But the foot that I took the shrapnel to was my left foot.
Right.
So, from my point of view, I have to say that was amazing grace that I got hit in my dodgy foot.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'd been hit in my right foot, it would have been life much more complicated. So, it's still, hideous scar and quite bad, but, and impacts on my balance and stuff, but really could have been a whole lot worse. And,
what? Yeah. At what point in time did you find out that your mum was safe?
Well, when I was on Phillip Street, I started to yell out. Well, the first thing actually I did, it sounds peculiar, but I had a little song, and I just sang Amazing Grace to myself because I thought nobody was around. Of course, there's heaps of people.
You can do anything you want to do, and no one's going to call you crazy after what you've been through. So. But
anyway, so I had a little song. I was just so grateful, and then I'm lying there, and the pain is increasing, and then this lovely lady come over. She was a policewoman, and she held my hand. She said she wouldn't leave me, and she had her flak jacket on and a helmet on and everything. And then the medic came, and gave me some pain relief, and I said to the medic, "It's just my foot, don't have to worry about anything else," and but of course it wasn't just my foot. But anyway, in the moment, and then I'm sitting there, and I remember saying to her, "Where's my mum?" And I think in the moment she actually thought I was saying, "I want my mum," I want my mother. Yeah. But actually I was saying, no, mum was in the cafe with me, and I just need to know where she is, what's happened to her. And so, of course, then the word's going around, where's blah, blah. And they'd taken mum out on, she said, a blue tarp. They ran her down Martin Place because, of course, what we didn't understand, because I think we'd all figured that there was no bomb, but the police didn't know that. So they're reacting like there's a bomb. And so, but anyway, so this and that. And then I was just about to get into the ambulance, and they said, "We've got your mother." And I'm like, "Oh, thank goodness they've got her." And then I thought, what does that mean, they've got her? To what state's she in, But anyway, so I went to Prince of Wales and mum went to RPA.
Okay, so... And you were in there for 3 months?
Yeah.
Okay, so it was significant physical injuries, but also I would imagine mental injuries. When did you find out Katrina Dawson that was killed?
I did not know that Katrina was in there.
Yeah.
When they originally told me that one of the other hostages had died, I made the assumption, I jumped to the assumption that one of the girls he'd taken into the kitchen had actually been killed.
Yeah.
And so I had a little bit of confusion initially about that. But, and then, of course, when people explained. And then, of course, because I wasn't watching media in hospital, but my friends were coming in and telling me what was happening in Martin Place and what the media was saying. And, it was very difficult in those early hours after, because there was one media report apparently that went that Tori Johnson had attacked the gunman. And, that's why, he ended up dying. And at the time I was infuriated by that misinformation. And because Tori was a hero.
Yeah.
He didn't need some fabricated story, which was a great shame. But it caused me personally some angst because I know what happened.
Yeah.
And it's like, but then I was aware that his family were being told this hero story, which wasn't true. There was no need for that, really. But anyway,
need to be told.
Yeah.
And like the public pouring out of sympathy and worrying about it being divisive. I've never seen a situation like that, and I've never felt an environment like that. And I've done a lot of crime scenes, but after they got you out, we went there to do the crime scene. And I was saying to you the other day that when I went in to the Lindt Café, and we had it secured, so there weren't many people inside there, but what you had just described was left in situ, so we saw what had gone on. There was a feeling of fear and emotion in that building. You talk about premonitions, and I've tried to process what that was about, because I've been to a lot of crime scenes, and some are worse than others, but I think it was because we were all watching it play out in public.
Yes.
And then when it resolved in such a tragic way, going in there, I could almost feel your presence, like the hostages' presence, how scary it would have been in that environment at the time. I can only imagine, and what sitting here and you describing what you went through and knowing the scene as well as I do, it's just it's horrific thing to have been through.
Yeah, and I think that's why it matters so much to the broader public, because this happened to all of us, because you all weren't just sitting idly, you were watching the television, and you were part of that. And whenever I speak about it publicly, absolutely everyone can tell me their story.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to hear their story, because it's our collective story, of where you were that day, what you were doing, how we were all living our ordinary lives, and then it changed. And, terrorism is real, violence.
Yeah.
We deal with it on an everyday basis.
Well, it brought it to the doorstep, didn't it?
Yes.
In a way, and I think the lead up to Christmas, like we all remember, I remember when it happened, I'm thinking, but this is inconvenient. I was seeing my son that I hadn't seen for ages, and spending a couple of days with him. I didn't get to see him. And then the flowers, the flowers at the crime scene. I can honestly say, and I've said it to you before the interview, I've never been in a situation where one of the things I had to manage was the amount of flowers and floral tributes that were put there. That was a pouring out of grief by a whole city.
You know, I have to tell you that because I was quite distressed about the idea of race riots in the street, and you know, the early days afterwards, like I'm thinking anything could happen, and talking about it with friends and family and praying about it, and then someone told me about a hashtag Ride With Me, and the idea that if, you know, especially for Muslim women who are in their hijab, if they're on public transport, you know, that they could reach out and other women would sit with them. And that brought me deep comfort. And the flowers.
Yeah.
The flowers were amazing, and I didn't get to see them, only photographs. But just knowing that was happening, just friends telling me about going into Martin Place and about how quiet it was and how respectful everybody was, and, you know, crying and the collective distress, but just how there was such a strong sense of unity and community. I can't tell you, I say to people, thank you so much, you know, for that, because when I was in hospital, it kind of made me just go, oh, I can just relax here and get better, you know.
Yeah.
There was nothing to sort of worry about, because I was freaked out about that and thinking, what can I do to stop something happening, you know?
Yeah.
Well, but anyway.
It was good that the city or the nation reacted that way. And
so grateful.
We talked the flowers, but the amount of people there. It was literally difficult to get into the crime scene and going backwards and forwards, and people were there so respectful and just
And I thank our country for that. You know, makes all the difference.
Yeah, there was a lot of pain there. Physical injuries, emotional injuries. Talk us through that, because you carry you've got to carry something.
Yeah.
After
Well,
being through
okay.
that.
So my physical injuries were, there's a hole in my foot.
That hurts.
Yeah, and I've got some shrapnel in and around. And the shrapnel that I got, I've still got little fragments of shrapnel.
That sounds pretty cool. Not many people can say, yeah, I got some shrapnel.
Yeah.
Do you
share the scars.
Drop that when you go through the airport? I got some
that's
shrapnel.
right. Yeah, just a bit of.
It's only a flesh wound.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. I say that a lot, actually. But anyway, so shrapnel in my foot, which is like fine pencil sharpenings. So a few things here. Two things. Nurses, right?
Yeah.
So we finally get in through emergency at Prince of Wales, and I'm greeted by emergency nurse there. And so I say to her, right, just tell me straight, my foot, do you think I'm going to lose it? And she looks at my foot and she says, I've seen worse. And in that moment I went, oh,
yeah,
that's right. Don't catastrophize, Louisa. She's seen worse. It's going to be okay. So we're going through that. And then, of course, I didn't realise, and this is peculiar, but I had also been hit in my belly, shrapnel in my belly. So that was really weird. And then it's only recently, like about 2 weeks ago, that I found out that when you've got various injuries around your body, you only feel one point of pain at a time. Oh. So anyway, my foot was in serious pain, and I didn't even feel this in my belly, right? And so I'm with the nurse, the emergency nurse, and we've done all the doctors have checked and this and that and blah blah, and the Middle Eastern crime scene cops are there, and we're talking, and they're recording me because I'm going to attend a dozen, because I'm thinking I need to tell them everything that I can remember in case I forget when I have my surgery, blah blah. Anyway, this is all happening in the emergency room right there, and then the nurse says to me, so, Louisa, we're just going to cut off your dress. And I went, no, you're not. You're not going to cut off my dress. I really like this dress. It's my best black dress, go anywhere. Girls will understand. Perfect black dress for everything. We're visiting a lawyer. Appropriate that I wore a black dress. Anyway, she said, oh, yes, it's protocol. It's what we're going to do. I'm like, what? You're going to cut off my dress? I was really upset about it. And so I turned to these Middle Eastern cops, right, and I say to them, you can't let her cut off my dress. And they say, whoa, no, we're not interested. Typical cops, right? Yeah. Where's a cop when you need one?
Step
they just like,
yeah,
exactly. They disappeared. Anyway, so she starts to cut off my dress. So she's going, cut, and I'm going, and we're going up, and it's going up and over my head, and then I help her lift it over my head. And then as I do that, my hands, and whoa, they're full of blood.
Ooh.
All over my hands. And what's that? I'm thinking, what's that? And she suddenly goes, all right, okay, lie down, blah, blah, checking my, oh, there you go, you got 2, shrapnel. Yeah. But, we had that little moment, that nurse and I. Yeah. She's looking at me and I'm looking at her, and she knows that I know that she was right. She had to cut off my dress. Yeah. And that was really great. But then she says, I've got to cut off your bra and your knickers. And I'm like, no way, I just come back from America. These are brand new, right? And she's just, this is what we do. And I'm thinking, someone's got to do something about this. But anyway, that all said, she was right, and I had shrapnel in my belly.
Ouch.
But then I'll just tell you this story. So this is what happened. So when you've had surgery, the doctor comes around and visits you the next day. So I'd had surgery at about 7 o'clock in the morning by the time it all was said and done. And the doctor must have come to visit me around, midday, 1 o'clock. Anyway, so she comes to visit me, and she's lovely, this doctor. And she says, oh, Louisa. And by this stage, I've got this great big wart around my foot and, patches of different things everywhere. And she says, oh, Louisa, like this. And I went, oh, no. I did lose my foot after all. Just the way she said it. And she said, no, Louisa, we're so sorry, so sorry. But we couldn't get the shrapnel out of your belly. And I went, oh. She said, yes, it's about the size of a long-grain, blown-up piece of rice. And there's a few there, and we just couldn't get it out of your belly. So I said to her, seeing, she was so serious. I just said, oh, gee, Doc, shame you couldn't have done a little lipo while you were down there, right? And I thought she'd laugh. And no, she finger, and she says, Louisa, your fat saved your life. And I'm like, pardon me, what'd you just say? Because what doctor says that, right? And she says, Louisa, if that shrapnel had gotten into your abdomen and your organs, she said, things would have been very different. So, I just had that little moment in the hospital there with that doctor. And I thought to myself, my God, how many years have I been trying to lose that extra 10 or so, 20 kilos, right? But here it is, it saved my life, the very thing that I have loathed about myself. And I guess it's,
Doesn't it teach you a lesson in life?
Exactly right.
There's a reason. It was meant to be.
I know, right? So I've never cursed a kilo again. 10 years of freedom, not worrying about
training,
kilos.
not eating, who needs that? Well, look, again, we laugh about it, but you've got to laugh about it. Like it impacts in so many ways. Now, that was shrapnel. I know when I went through the crime scene, there was so much concern from a police point of view and trying to ascertain what went on, and concern from the tactical guys that I put up front. Heroes is a term that's used too often with policing things. They're doing a job. But in the circumstances, and I have had involvement in tactical policing, in the circumstances for them to have to go into a situation like that, at immediate action after what happened to Tori, would be confronting. And they didn't know whether they were going in there with the bombs, and they went in there without the blinking an eye. When they came out and they'd done their job, they'd taken out the terrorist, and they found out that the hostage had died, Katrina, in that situation. They were obviously devastated. And we had ballistics. I had the coroner come through the crime scene. We left it all in situ. Coroner come through the crime scene, ballistics. And I think it was about a day later or whatever than the ballistics called me back to the Sydney Police Centre and showed me something that he'd seen in the way that the bullets were fired and all that, and it looked like it was shrapnel from a ricochet that had hit Katrina. And I know we had to keep the integrity of the investigation, protect that, because we were doing separate things. As we've mentioned, Angelo Momolo, who did a great job running the whole investigation. And I know it was a relief to the tactical blokes that went in there that it wasn't from a direct hit. Yeah. And I'm sure they'd be feeling that you received shrapnel. I'm going to ask you. You're the one that was in there. You know the chaos of the situation. What's your thoughts on the police that went in that day?
Yeah, first of all, I'm astounded. The hindsight that everybody has an opinion. And I sort of say, you weren't really there in the moment. How can you have an opinion? But, that's the way it is. Everyone does have an opinion. And so in the moment, a few things about those cops, right? So the tactical guys, first of all, they were there all day. There wasn't a change of shift. They were there all day. They were waiting with us. And just knowing that they were there was very comforting. But they waited in the hot sun, and I just... and then, of course, when they came in and they rescued us, which is what we'd been waiting for all day, finally they came in, and the overwhelming insanity of being in that space. If you imagine that it was like Hawaii Five-0 and one cop goes in and shoots one bullet and the bad guy's dead.
Yeah.
And somewhere in my crazy brain, that's maybe what I thought was going to happen. But of course, that's not reality. And what I didn't know until the inquest, so my opinions are informed by the inquest and what actually happened. But, Monis did not go down. He just did not go down. And so they had to keep shooting to take him down. And they had to keep shooting to take him down because they thought he had a bomb.
Yep.
And someone had mistakenly thought they'd saw a wire going down his shirt sleeve, a long sleeve shirt sleeve, and therefore that meant that he had some sort of pressure button thing. But if they did not take him out, then he could pop the bomb, right?
Yeah.
So that once I heard that information at the inquest, I suddenly understood why took so long. The shooting just went on so intensely. So logically, that makes total sense to me. And I think that, a few things, I don't know that the general public really understand that actually one of the TOU guys was hit. Officer B was hit.
Yeah.
Now, he was hit with shrapnel as he was coming into the cafe with Monis directly firing at them. And he took shrapnel to the side of his temple. Now, for the life of me, I don't know how anyone takes, effectively a bullet to the side of your temple and you don't die.
Yeah.
He didn't die. That's miraculous. But, it costs these cops,
Yeah.
physically and psycho-emotionally as well. They're just humans like us, right? Even with all the training. But, so with regard to those guys, from right up front, I remember Mum and I just were, poor Angelo, when can we meet those guys who rescued us?
Yeah.
Can we meet them? Please, can we meet them? And we'd ask that every second time we spoke to him, poor man. Anyway, but of course that's not how things work with cops. And it took me a long time before I met them.
Yep.
Or some of them. And, we have nothing but admiration for them and gratitude and total respect, it's hostages are running out, right?
Yeah.
And they're running in.
Yeah.
They're going in. And, my God, what kind of crazy brave does that take?
Yeah. Well, I know that'll mean a lot to them, and the fact that you've said it to them, but it's good that it's said publicly. Admiration and respect, and I think that's how it should be described. And they all pay a price for that.
Yes.
I haven't seen a police officer involved in a shooting that hasn't paid the price one way or the other. And it's scrutinised, by people with benefit of hindsight that weren't there. And I was hearing just on the grapevine about the guys before they went in or when they were there, they were phoning their families saying they mightn't see them again. But they still went in.
Yes.
So
that is, that's what I mean. Who are these people?
Yeah. Well, they're out there, and we're lucky that they're out there. The inquest, it answered some questions for you. Was it traumatic, or was it beneficial in that scene? And you had Michael Barnes as the coroner, who had a good reputation, a no nonsense type of person, and probably the best person for looking into it. Were you satisfied that the questions were being answered that you needed answered?
No, not really.
Okay.
The inquest was for me quite traumatic, actually. So originally I went to the inquest to pay my respects to the families, because I hadn't had a chance because I was in hospital when Tori and Katrina were buried, but I wanted to do that. But what happened to me was, once I started to go to the inquest, I realised that this was the only way I was really ever going to know what really happened. And I certainly couldn't rely on secondhand information that one gets through the media.
Yeah.
So I started to go every day. So I virtually went every day, not quite, but virtually. It was an arduous time because it took so long, that inquest. And the inquest was trying to be all things to all people. It really, an inquest purpose is to find out the cause of death for people who've died. And there were 3 people who died in that siege. But of course, the rest of the country was looking for something more. I mean, we were looking for what possibly, if this happened again, what improvements could be made, all of that kind of thing, but also trying to understand how. How did this happen? And so I was left with several significant questions post-inquest. Yeah.
Well, say what they are.
Well, a few things. So first of all, because I have connection with the New South Wales Police, I have a lot to do with them. I've spoken at several functions and different things and training and all that kind of stuff. So, and I'm very grateful for that opportunity to share like that with them. And just as an aside to that, it absolutely takes the siege, the Lindt siege, has taken a toll on the police collectively, because without fail, whenever I've gone to share with police, someone in the room will say, "Louisa, we're sorry. It wasn't meant to be like this." And there's a collective grief amongst our police, and I feel for them, because it's not their fault, But anyway, at the inquest, it was fascinating to see how it played out. It was all done in segments, different things, about Monis and then about the cafe and then about, and then about the police. So there was a lot of discussion, as there was in the media, a lot of discussion about the police and what went wrong. And we have to say things went wrong, but I can say I know things have changed. Because of my dealings, and I'm very grateful to know that they've changed the way the negotiators work, for example. There's been significant changes there. There's been things that have come out of the Lindt. For example, one of the hardest things, of course, was for the police dealing with the hostage survivors and families after the siege, in the immediate aftermath. That was very challenging and hard for everybody. So now, as I understand, the police have something called FLOs, which is family liaison officers, who are dedicated in those kind of circumstances. For example, I imagine that would have happened for Bondi, where in those circumstances where someone's died, the families are given one point of contact with the police. They're called FLOs, and that's a great thing, because I know that it was hard, because the nature of policing, you can't just pop off and hold the hand of people who in trauma from an event like that.
I think that's great initiative that's come in, and you're quite right, it has come in, and there were problems there, and I can speak from personal experience from that particular incident that there were so many victims, so many families, and I was doing the crime scene, but I was allocated to speak to a family and stay in contact with this hostage, and things it was on a magnitude that we didn't understand or hadn't prepared for. And having been a homicide detective for as long as I have, I know the importance of that, keeping those lines of communication. And you're looking at it from a hostage victim of crime situation, the importance of having someone that you can find out what's going on, or what's the processes, who can I ask a question, and without having a name or someone that you can pick the phone up and speak to, you get lost in the world. So that is a positive that's come from it. You mentioned the negotiators, and I know they got put through the ringer over what occurred there, and hopefully the improvements have played out from there. Because if things happen, and I keep prefacing it with benefit of hindsight, we're all clever when we look back, but if there were mistakes made, let's own them and improve if we can.
I think that's true, and that observation I made with regard to the police was seeing how they quickly got about making those improvements. It was very encouraging for me, because it's really easy to be down on the police, but actually the work they've done, but it's perpetual, whether it's us individually as individuals or it is our institutions. We always have to be on the board for improvement and changes and embrace that as hard as it can be. But, it wasn't, of course, we had opportunity to give Mr. Barnes a victim impact statement, even though the inquest wasn't about the people who've survived, they're about the people who died. So, I think in hindsight, there may have been, we needed something that was between an inquest and a royal commission to address the entire gauntlet of what happened at the Lindt. The inquest was not big enough. It was necessary, but not big enough, and our expectations were too high for what an institution or a function that the inquest could provide. So, in hindsight, I hope that there'd be, maybe it doesn't need necessarily a royal commission, but it needs something that's just that little bit bigger. I don't know, not being a legal person, but so I sort of
a parliamentary inquiry or
something.
I understand what you're saying, and you obviously understand the nature of inquests. The parameters are narrow, manner, cause, and time and location of death. That's really what the coroner is there to put. And maybe the expectations were going to look wider than what they had the power to do.
Yes.
Any other things that have flowed on from your experience, what you're doing now, and
Well, the inquest left me a bit gobsmacked, not being a legal person, to understand what was happening with the DPP, and in actual fact, I still don't know why. We don't know why Man Haron Monis was even out on bail. That man had approximately 43 different sexual assault charges against him. So why is a man with 43 different sexual assaults even out on bail that he could then commit the Lindt atrocity? So, that is a big question for me. We've not looked there. We've been so busy looking at the police, we didn't turn our minds to looking about why he was really out on bail. It was discussed, but it was hedged. There's a funny little legal thing that happened at the inquest that I don't really understand. It's a mystery to me, but, there's something called client confidentiality. So, of course, in this instance, the police were the clients of the DPP. So, therefore, there's a client confidentiality. Privilege. That's right, exactly, privilege. So, however, the police, in the spirit of the inquest, said that they were happy to negate that or surrender that privilege and just let everything out. However, the DPP chose to not do that. They insisted that client confidentiality be held. So I was confused about why an institution like the DPP, that's there to look after us, one would think, why they would do that, and why we could not dig in a little deeper and understand what was it that allowed that man to be out on bail. So was there an issue with the judiciary? I mean, excuse me, God forbid that I should question them, what do I know? But, seriously, if we're going to be transparent, if we're going to actually suck the guts out of what happened in that situation and get whatever benefit we possibly can, then surely we must be brave enough to ask those questions.
Well, Louisa, and I'll say this in a general sense because I'm a coward and I won't be specific, but when it comes to legal systems looking at themselves or critiquing themselves, there's a certain what I call intellectual arrogance that comes about that, why would you dare question what we do? And so I think that plays out, and I'm talking in a general sense. But it's a fair question you ask what Man Monis was doing out on bail, because when the incident happened, when it very first hit the news, we were in the homicide office, and one of the young female detectives said, that's Man Monis. He's been locked up for or charged him in relation to the murder of his ex-partner. Mm-hmm. And that's where he was identified first. So there are a lot of questions, and I suppose that you're the tail end, whatever. You're the victim of these actions, and so I think you've got a right to question. But when they're looking into the court systems, and look, I take it you're a person that respects the court system. I do too. Yeah, we've got to have a system. But again, if it can be improved, let's improve it. And it's very easy and very, it's almost like a sport beating up on the police, and the police are robust enough to accept that. But if the problems are external to the police, maybe we should look at that as well. So,
yeah, I would hope. We are 10 years now since the Lindt, and we have not moved on this issue.
Yeah,
and one wonders, what is this about? Who doesn't take sexual assault seriously enough to keep someone like that in prison?
Yeah.
So we have, imagine if we'd learnt that lesson at the Lindt.
Yep.
How serious this kind of crime is.
This is the potential consequences from...
Exactly.
Okay.
So, I am keen about that if there's ever anyone who's brave enough to stand up and start to ask those questions. I'm just, nobody, and I have no legal skill. So, but I think it's still out there. It hangs in the air for us.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to agree with you on being a nobody. You're articulating a horrific experience you've been through with, some genuine emotions, but consideration for everyone involved, not just yourself, and it says a lot about you. Are you advocating for anything else? Are you doing anything else on the back of what your experience is?
So, I'm so blessed. Like I said, I really had that euphoric experience.
Yeah.
And that has to do with the fact that we started the Louisa Hope Fund for Nurses at Prince of Wales Hospital back then. And that was my involvement with the nurses is happy. I'm so happy. It's like a privilege, so privileged to be involved with nurses. They're incredible. Nurses could rule the world, I'm just saying. Anyway, but of course now I'm more directly involved with something called VOTA, which is Victims of Terror Australia, which is for citizens of Australia and New Zealand to come together with regard who have survived terrorist attacks, to be a support group for each other. So we've been working very hard on that. So the launch has just happened recently, and so I'm very excited about that. For, this is, when you are a victim of terror, you become the state, because the terrorist is not interested in you as an individual.
Striking at the state.
They're hitting the state. And so it's completely different, actually, to other acts of violence. So the expectation on you is different, and a whole lot of different things. But so therefore, how we help and support victims of terror, and let's face it, the world we live in, it's not going to stop.
I think it's, the Lindt Cafe was a small incident that, it might pale into insignificance in potentially what can occur when you're talking terrorism. For the support group that you're setting up, if people are interested, how do they find it?
Yes, well, they can find us online. We're at VOTA, and so Victims of Terror Australia, they can find us there, and certainly they can go to my website if they like, just to make contact, because we want to reach out. We want to know other people who've been in this circumstance so that we can be supportive of each other. Myself personally, I have a very keen interest in how we can serve the broader community, and for those who have been victims and survivors can then reach out and speak into the community with regard to these kind of things for our social cohesion and our multicultural nation that we are. And of course, people like Jill Hicks, brilliant, amazing Australian, South Australian. She was in the London bombing attacks.
Yep.
And so, people like Jill, and of course the amazing Alpha Chang, and different people.
I've heard Jill speak. She's amazing.
Amazing, that's right. And so you think, well, this has happened to me. What do you do with it? All things in life have a reason, I believe. And so therefore, what do you do with this experience? You can be owned by the experience, or you can own the experience, and you can work out a way to turn it for good. And for me personally, that's been a blessing to be able to do that in just small ways, but just to encourage other people and to not let ourselves go down the hole. And the hole, of course, is racial hatred and all of that kind of division. Australia is not that kind of place, but I mean, we have to actively and deliberately make a way to not be that place, because it'd be very easy to be convinced to be fearful or angry. But actually, no, we can be another way. We can be our true selves,
Well, I am not going to add to that because I can't deliver it as articulately as you had, and I've just got to say, you inspire me to be through what you've been through and come out with this attitude and the way that you're approaching life. Louisa Hope, you're a good person. You are a good person. So I've really enjoyed the chat. You have taken me into into a situation that, a deeply personal situation, but I think anyone that's listening has got a now clearer idea of what went on in those 16 hours of terror and the horror of it. But I also think they'll find some inspiration in the way that you've coped with what you've been through and what you're focusing on now. So it's been an absolute pleasure having you on I Catch Killers.
Thank you.
Cheers. Wow. Louisa took us right inside the Lindt Cafe Siege. It was, her explaining what happened in there and the emotions as she went through the highs and lows, thinking she was going to be killed, thinking it's the last moment in her life. Just really blew me away. But more importantly is her attitude of what she came out after being a hostage in a terrorist situation and the outlook she has on life. I think she's a really beautiful lady, and I love talking to her.